My beloved, there are three words that govern my life, and those words are Jesus is Lord. If you're talking to me, I might not say to you, Jesus is Lord all day long, but when you talk to me, you'll hear in my conversation, Jesus is Lord. If you walk with me, you'll notice in my steps that Jesus is Lord. And so that governs my life. The message of Christ governs my life. The example of Christ governs my life. Who is your neighbor next door? Who is that? I don't know who that is. How long have you lived in this community? I've been here 2 years, and you don't know your neighbors? How can we have a neighborhood if we don't know our neighbors? How can we share the gifts that God has given us if we don't know our neighbors? God has called us to build communities of faith, to build communities that one another live in. And in those communities, we're supposed to share with one another of the great gifts that we have. But if we don't know our neighbors, then we don't care about our neighbors. We're not caring about our physical neighbor, and we're not caring about the spiritual life within our physical neighbor. Jesus is Lord. And if Jesus is Lord, then you ought to share the Lordship of Christ with those whom you're in conversation with. Let me ask you something. On your job, in your sorority or your fraternity, in that organization that you belong to, do people know that you are a believer? And a believer, do they know that you profess Christ? Have you ever shared the gospel with them? Preach the gospel often, and when necessary, use words. Can they tell the gospel that you live by your walk, by your deeds and your actions? This is a time when we've got to build community. We've got to build community around the fact that Jesus is Lord. Jesus is curious. Jesus is the head. We are the blessed body. But the question is our body connected to the Jesus physical body that was on this earth when it walked upon this earth? Are we collectively doing what he called us to do? Are we living as he called us to live? Are we that faith community that produces the message of the way? And are we showing our neighbors a way out? If you live in a community and you don't know your neighbors, let me say this to you. You're not being a good Christian. If you live in a community and your neighbors don't know that you profess Christ, let me say this to you. You're not being a good Christian. When I come in your house, I should know that I'm in a Christian home. Like when I walk in an Islamic home, I know I'm in a Muslim home. When I go in a Jewish home, I know I'm in a Jewish home. And when I go in a Hindu's home, I know I'm in a Hindu's home. But far too often, when I come into homes where people profess to be Christian, I gotta ask them, who do you believe in? What do you profess? This is Pastor Jones, just keeping it real with you and telling you I love you. And it's time for us to begin to show the love we have for Christ by living our faith.